Welcome to Auto Off Topic. Hey, Brad. How you doing?
Uh, Good evening, Andrew. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, yeah, it is St. Patrick's Day.
It is. I made sure I wore my green shirt and green shoes today to be all festive and, company spirit, and nobody else did. So,
It's probably because
cool.
you work with a bunch of men, right?
I do, but no, there's a few women. Actually, one person on the other side of the office who I don't actually interact with very often during the day did wear a green t shirt I saw. So I wasn't 100% alone, but
Yeah, I
it
wore
is what it
green.
is.
I didn't go to the office today, but I have a green IMSA shirt. It's
Okay.
like the coolest IMSA shirt ever. I bought it when I was at Lime Rock last July because
Okay.
it's on the back of it. It says the Grady's, like the 80s, but the Grady's.
Okay.
And it has all pictures of the really cool 80s IMSA cars.
Huh. I like it.
Yeah, and it's green.
Like 787B and stuff, or
Mm-hmm.
oh,
I think so.
excellent, super cool.
I'm trying to remember now. But like the
On my back, I can't
962s,
see it. Leave me alone.
yeah, and the what were the 911s with the long tails? They're 96. They weren't
962.
no.
Yes.
I
Oh, 911 with the long tail.
911 with the long
935.
tails. 935s. That's what I was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking of the IMSA like GTP card, not the
No,
GT3
that's on
card.
there. And like
Okay.
I think the Jaguar's on there.
The
And
silk cut Jag.
yeah, and whatever it was, the Lowenbrow car, was that a
That was a
Porsche?
Porsche. Yep.
Okay.
That was a 962C.
All right.
Probably the Mercedes Sauber C9 is probably one of
Yeah,
them.
and I think the car. Oh, the Gurney Eagle I think is on the back,
The
and
Toyota.
yep, and the
Cool.
car that the guy, God, what did he drive? He was the drug dealer. The heck's his name? He was selling weed to go racing in IMSA.
It's funny, like fast forward 30 years,
Yeah,
there's legitimate teams who are like, yeah, we just sell weed to go racing, but
yeah,
it's totally fine because
yeah,
it's medical.
yeah. It's funny because he got off on probate or the parole. They paroled him because of they kind of delegalized marijuana a bit and
Delegalized or decriminalized, Andrew?
decriminalized it. Sorry,
Yeah.
and gosh, what is his name? There's a great Dirty Money episode,
Yeah, I can't remember his name. I know exactly
or
who you're talking about, but
maybe it's not Dirty Money, but there's an episode of a show on Netflix that talks about his whole
I
thing.
think it's Dirty Money.
It's
I
either
think you're
Dirty Money or
correct.
there's another one that's just like that. And
So the show that you can't think of is the guy you can't think of on it. So
uh-huh.
everybody go watch that.
Yeah, this is great. Doing well. And I know there's a couple of people that know who this is and they're screaming at us right now. So
Scott something.
yeah. I think so.
His name's Scott. Scott Weed Race Car.
Yeah. Yeah. Scott Mary Jane racing
Randy
team.
Lanier.
Yeah. That's
You
it.
know how I found that really fast?
Did you look up weed race car driver?
That's exactly what I googled. Weed race car driver, and it comes up Randy Lanier.
Yeah.
So, but it looks like he's actively racing today, and he's actually racing in a medical marijuana car, which is
Yes.
a huge
Yes.
like fu to everybody.
Yeah.
Cannabis Sativa Inc.
Yep.
911 race car.
Yeah.
So excellent.
Great, right?
Well, hey, it's I don't want to call him a hero for getting out and doing it because it was technically illegal at the time. So let's not. I guess he's still a criminal, but hey, at least he sold drugs for a reason that you or I would sell drugs.
Yeah.
Why did you
So
sell drugs to afford my race car? All right, I'll let it go.
so anyway, that's our green talk.
Yeah, we talked about our green shirts and marijuana race cars. Perfect.
Yep.
Moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, want to start with some car news this week? Because there's a couple of things. We don't generally talk about new car news, but a couple of things have kind of clicked across our radar that deserve mentioning, I think.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Well, one, we have been lamenting the loss of the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution for years now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Subaru side of that is now going to lament the loss of the STI.
Yeah.
So they're releasing a new WRX next year? Or it's coming out this year? Or is
No,
it
it's out.
2022?
It's
But is that
out.
already? Okay, I haven't seen one yet.
People have been reviewing it. I haven't seen one in person, but there's been reviews out and I've seen pictures of it.
So is it a 2022 car, I assume?
I think
Hmm.
so.
Go watch that documentary with that thing by that guy. And
Yeah.
let us know about this too. We don't know anything. Why do you listen to us? So the brand new WRX is apparently out, and generally, when a new WRX comes out, all the enthusiasts are waiting to hear the news about the new STI. Correct?
Yeah, it's usually
Well,
like a year later, the next
yeah,
model
about
year.
that. Well, unfortunately, this year Subaru just released a statement saying they're no longer developing internal combustion performance engines.
Wah, 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 wah.
Yeah.
So the STI
So
died with the EJ20.
the STI died how it was born, powered by the same engine for 25 years.
They couldn't figure out how to hybridize an EJ20. So
Yeah, I guess not. Anyway, so it's dead. There's not going to be a internal combustion STI on this generation car. They're talking about how they still have performance cars because they still have the. They're still called a BRZ, right? They haven't changed that,
yeah, the
or
BRC
BRZ, depending on where you're listening from. So they're still talking about that, still their performance
or
car,
the
and that
birds.
Burrs. I don't like that. We don't call it WRX or Rex. So
Yeah. Ugh.
yeah, exactly. So anyway, Subaru says they're done. There's no more internal combustion engine performance cars being developed. They say that the ever tightening regulations are coming in too fast, and if they spend all this money on developing it, it won't be relevant long enough to justify their investment. So I don't know if I believe that or if it's a cop out or what, but I wasn't planning on buying one, so it doesn't hurt me tremendously.
That would
Um,
have ruined it anyways.
Listen, so let's go back in time a few years to 2004. That was the first American market STI, right?
Uh huh.
So the STI in 2004 was a significant improvement over the stock WRX.
Yep.
The stock WRX was 227 horse,
Yep.
and then the STI was rated at 276, correct?
No, it was like 300.
Was it 300? I thought it was the gentleman's agreement was the official number still, though,
Maybe.
on the
I think
first cars. Anyway, it
they're
was it
like
was
they're about
significant.
300.
It was significantly more power than the regular WRX. It was a 2.5 versus the 2.0, so it had more torque. It had different brakes, different suspension, different seats. It was a whole package. It wasn't just some emblems and some other stuff. It was legitimately a much better car than
They
the regular
were
WRX.
homologation cars.
100% homologation cars. They existed only so a race car could exist in its silhouette. As the WRX moved on, the STI kind of lost some of its panache. And the last couple generation STIs, I don't think were a huge, significant improvement over the WRX.
I think the
And
last one still had like 350 horsepower and an EJ25.
I think it was less than 350 horsepower. It wasn't a huge number. And we're now living in a world in the year 2022 where you can go to a Dodge dealer for 60 grand and buy a 500 plus horsepower car.
Well,
And
for the same money you could buy an STI for,
that's what I'm
you could
saying.
go buy a Mustang GT or a
And that's
Camaro SS.
450 horsepower now.
Yeah.
So they're huge, huge power difference, huge performance difference. The modern Mustangs and Camaros don't have as much of the same, maybe not deserved hatred for solid rear ends and all that stuff. They're
Oh
whatever is
no,
what it is with that argument.
because of
But
like the Evo and the STI, like they really went to
yeah,
town on making those cars handle.
yeah, they made everything out the box good, and I can take an old Mustang and make it handle good, but the new ones out the box are, you know, they'll drive circles probably around an '03 Evo or an '04 STI, more
Absolutely.
than likely.
Absolutely. Stock for
We
stock,
still
absolutely.
we still hold those cars to a higher regard because those were our teenage dream cars or late early 20s dream cars, and we actually each got one. I had an Evo, you had an SDI. Actually, you had an Evo as well. So we lived that experience. We knew that life. But I can't imagine now going to a Subaru dealer and plopping down almost $50,000 for an STI that makes 30 horsepower more than the one did in 2005
Right.
and doesn't do anything better than the '05. In fact, it's a bigger, heavier, probably less sharp edged homologation race car than it used to be. So while it's official that the SDI is dying this year and there's not going to be a new one, I would almost argue that spiritually the STI has been dead for a few years. Am I off base on that, you think, Andrew, or do you kind of agree with that?
No, I don't think you're wrong. You're
Yeah, I feel like it lost its edge. You know, the '03 Evo, the '04 STI, they had a real edge to them that lasted throughout that body style, and each subsequent body style kind of lost a little of that appeal, that like razor edge feeling they had. So it's sad, but at the end of the day, the world goes on, right?
mm-hmm.
If you want an STI, you can still go buy an '05. They made thousands of them. They're still out there. They're expensive,
Very expensive now.
but they're going to cost less than a brand new one would have anyway. So, and as far as the driving experience goes, I think it'd be a better driving experience. Buy something boring to commute and spend the extra money on something fun to play with in the weekends.
Did you
My
see?
recommendation.
Speaking of related cars on Bring a Trailer, like two recent auctions that just started were like super low mileage Evos, like '04 to '06s. I don't remember the exact years. With
No, I
like
didn't. I didn't look. Nope.
under like 5,000 miles on them. And you're like,
I did
really?
not look.
Like somebody just sat on this car?
Every car has that. Yeah,
It's
every
so
car. I
crazy.
mean, there's what was the Geo Metro they sold the other day with like 800 miles on it. Like, if there's a car that exists somewhere, there's a low mileage version of it, whatever the story may be
It's
that has it.
weird.
Yeah, who knows why, but they exist.
Because even that
So
that Evo is still going to need a timing belt because it's been sitting for 10 years
it's aged out.
plus. Yeah,
Yep. That's
weird.
any car at that point, but yeah, I
All
don't
right,
get it.
STI is dead. Speaking of new Camaros and Mustangs, they are going racing again.
Both of them.
And so Mustang announced a GT3 program for IMSA in 2024. So that's really cool. Because there's a bunch of, so basically what's happening IMSA, uh, I'm not the expert on this, but the basic gist I have from watching races I picked up, they are converting, so they are eliminating the GT Daytona class, GTD,
Okay.
and there was GTLM, and I believe, so like for example, I believe the C8 Corvettes were in GTD. Regardless, they're eliminating those two classes, and what they're going
GTD
to,
is where the C8 was,
okay,
or
so they're,
C8R. Yep.
yeah, they are eliminating those classes, and they are going to a homologation GT3 class, which is a worldwide FIA standard for endurance racing.
Well, GTD is the replacement for GT Le Mans or GT3. GTD is the new class, right?
No, they are
Mm,
no, they are moving everything to GT3 specs.
correct, but I think that there's still going to be. Maybe I'm thinking too deep. I'm thinking outside of IMSA.
Yeah.
So IMSA's GTD and GT3 is still going to be like Le Mans and stuff. Like international racing will still be GT3.
No, IMSA is going to also go to GT3 rules so that they can open the field up to more vehicles.
Okay, because the Ford GT was a GTE car, which I guess is one above D.
Yes,
I don't know. There's too many classes now. It
but
used to be very simple.
they don't race it anymore, anyways.
They do not, no, but I'm assuming that the GT3 Mustang is going to be a lower class
Actually,
car
they may
than
have even
GT.
switched to GT3. I think already because they were talking about the Corvette has been detuned because it is a GTD car but running in a GT3 class, so it's detuned.
Okay.
The point is that's why the Mustang is running GT3 because it can run. It's going to be able to run in IMSA and overseas, all in the same class, the same rules. This was because there's a huge field of GT3 cars. They've been racing over in Europe for years already. IMSA
Right.
wants to bring them over here to make the field bigger.
Which they need to, because you watch an IMSA race here and it's the majority of cars are prototype cars, and prototype cars don't bring in the audience.
No, and then it's like for it's like Porsche, maybe a Ferrari, the Corvettes. So
Okay, I just figured it out. So GTLM was the category at IMSA.
Hmm.
GTLM is being replaced by a GT3 based class
Yes.
that IMSA is calling for their own rule book GTD Pro.
Okay.
That's what's happening. So GTLM was the old class in IMSA. The GTD Pro is going to be based on GT3 class rules that conform to the global GT3 rule set, but IMSA calls it GTD Pro. So we were both
Okay.
right there.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it is GTD and GT3. So
Yeah.
that's depending on where it races,
Yeah. They want to run the same cars worldwide, which
which
makes
makes
sense.
sense. Yeah, financially and developmental wise, like it just makes sense. The cool thing is that this GTD/GT3 Mustang is going to be. They've only released like a teaser image of the car, but it's going to be what looks like remember the 80s like silhouette racers.
Yeah.
So it's going to basically look like a Mustang, but it's going to have giant fenders and a huge billboard style spoiler on the back, like airfoil. So I am super excited for that
Hmm.
because I would say silhouette racers are my favorite like touring car racers because they're just so wild and over the top, but still production car based. So way into that. Super excited for that. That news is a couple months old now. The big news right now, which made us bring this back up because Mustang is going,
Yeah. Today.
Le Mans racing today. Hendrick made a pretty big announcement too. Hendrick Racing. So
Yeah, they're gonna run a next gen or Gen 7 NASCAR Cup car
yeah, the
at
car they call the next gen, which is the current gen now.
yeah, seventh generation.
Yep.
Somewhere I saw that too. I was like, okay, I didn't know that. But yeah, so that current car they're going to field in a program called Garage 56 for Le Mans, which allows for like prototypes to run.
Yep.
So like the Delta Wing ran in it before. So this is going to be an actual cup car with some modifications, but not
Yeah, it's gonna have
much.
some longevity modifications for
Yeah,
sure. Different gearing and whatnot.
yeah, probably some
What
aero modifications. It'll be a symmetrical car. I don't think they even tweak them anymore. I think they're pretty symmetrical now.
the cool thing is that this is a full on NASCAR
Yeah,
that's gonna show up in France and run Le Mans.
apparently
That
the last
hasn't
time they did
happened.
this, yeah, it's in like '76 or something.
Yeah, it's been a very long time, which they said nearly 50 years, so that puts it somewhere in the mid to early 70s. I it's super cool. I'm super excited. The cool thing about this is we haven't talked much about it on the podcast yet because we haven't had much of an opportunity yet between a couple of guests and since the season started. But NASCAR is super exciting this year. I know we talked about it last year and we were excited about some of the new stuff they were doing, but all that stuff culminated in this year's NASCAR season. And the cars are totally new. They're totally different. And for lack of a better word, they're modern race cars,
Yeah,
which will enable something that's almost box stock to the NASCAR rules to compete at the level of Le Mans. Whereas if you took an old, 4 speed, not special NASCAR car, it probably wouldn't have been as competitive as the current gen NASCARs are. So all these improvements have made kind of like a world class race car, and I'm excited to see it out there mixing it up with the rest of the world's race cars. That's gonna be cool.
oh, I'm like, what modification? Obviously headlights and taillights,
It will
wipers,
definitely need headlights and taillights. Yep,
because
maybe
it rains.
wipers. Yeah, different tires. I'm sure there's going to be other stuff added to it. They'll probably have like some kind of a quick change brake setup they don't have because they don't do endurance racing right now.
Yeah,
There'll be things that, again, like you said, headlights and taillights, and other things that are required for endurance racing. Quick change suspension assemblies and all kinds of stuff to make it so if they
they're
do
pretty
damage them,
quick
you can get back
change. I mean,
together.
did you see them doing some of the body repairs on these last couple of
Yeah,
races?
they have panels now. They never had panels before.
Yeah, they can just swap
So,
panels.
yeah.
So
Well, that's the cool thing about these NASCARs this year too, is that they have like an FRP kind of reinforced plastic body.
yeah,
So when they do a little bit of like side draft bumping, they don't completely ruin the aero on the car because it doesn't deform immediately because it's thin sheet metal. So,
no,
but that also enables these quick change panels and stuff. So, Garage 56 is interesting. I was just reading about that before we started the podcast because I wasn't actually even very familiar with it. You brought up that that's where the Delta Wing car ran, but it's neat because the cars don't have to conform to any other Le Mans classes. It's basically for developing new technology, developing new race cars, and being able to use them in a race environment without having to follow the rules of the existing race cars. I mean, obviously they have some rules to follow and safety rules and stuff, but
I mean, they figure you're not going to dominate, so let you
yeah,
run this thing.
as the Delta Wing proved time and time again,
Yeah,
just didn't work. But
yeah,
that's
it's a
cool.
cool
So
idea.
yeah, it was interesting. Listen, there's been a few of those over the years. Back in F1 in the 70s, you had the Tyrrell with the six wheels, and there used to be the Lamar car with the giant vacuums underneath. There's always been something pushing the limit and trying something different. It doesn't always work, but the Delta Wing didn't work either. But it'll be cool to see a NASCAR competing at Le Mans. I don't know what the kind of rules are as far as its competition. Is it actually racing? I assume it is, but I'm into it. I'm excited for it. I'm glad it's a Camaro. Some of my favorite Camaros are the cars that ran Le Mans back in the early 70s, which they weren't NASCAR cars, but they were, Camaro based Le Mans cars. And they always had these big wide fenders and, tons of Marshall driving lights hanging off the front of them. And they just kind of mixed the look of like a rally car with a muscle car with a road race car. And it's super cool. Look it up. There's a green 1971 Camaro that ran a few years.
Yeah,
It's one
and
of my favorite Camaros of all time.
I love C3 Le Mans cars.
The Corvettes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Super cool.
even though they never did really well, they
Now
look
they
really
look cool,
cool.
though. Yep. Absolutely look cool. And that's the same thing with the Camaro, too. It never won, but man, did it look cool. They actually
Yeah,
ran Camaros in Le Mans up through third gens. So,
yeah, and Corvette had a really long history with running Le Mans, but actually
sure.
wasn't really competitive until the current team came along in 2000.
Yeah, with the C5.
Yeah,
The
and
C5R
and
was the
from
first
from
really
then
good
to
one.
now, they've had a lot of successes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, Corvette's been running Le Mans since the 50s, since the dawn of Corvettes.
yeah, they didn't really,
So,
they really don't have a lot of wins up until the modern era. But
either way, they're cool. Winning or not winning. Old race cars are always cool. So,
so the last couple of NASCAR races, I don't know. I wasn't. Fontana was cool, right? That was Fontana, California.
Montana was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting. I don't know. I wasn't super. I didn't find Phoenix to be super exciting,
The
but not
cool thing
every
about
race is going to
Phoenix
be.
the cool thing about Phoenix is there's no out of bounds.
Huh.
So when they go into every restart, the cars would fan out 6 and 7 wide with some cars down on the apron trying to pretty
Hmm.
much cut the corner.
And isn't the track like asymmetrical or something?
Yeah, it's not totally symmetrical. But did you
Weird.
watch the race? Did you see any of those starts that had like the scrambling of like 7 car wide down on the apron?
I tried to watch most of it. Um, it was we got. I don't know. Marco's been real into basketball from like out of nowhere,
All right.
so I bought him
It's by the
a
sounds.
kid's basketball hoop,
Yep.
and he was just real into it. And I had it on, but I was kind of playing basketball with him in the living room because we have a hardwood
How,
floor. So
how dare you not pay attention to NASCAR and play with your child and not commit to content for the podcast. I also was only half paying attention to the race because I was
but
working on Cressida, but
he would
story later.
pause and go over the TV and just go race car, and then he'd go back to play basketball.
All right, I like it. This is a
So,
man after my own heart. Those are my two favorite sports: race cars and basketball.
or he'd run over to his Hot Wheels table and pull out. There's
Race
one
car.
that's a Hot Wheels race car. It's like a NASCAR Dodge race car that says Hot Wheels on it, and he knows to pull that specific one out, and he's like race car.
All right. So you're raising a NASCAR fan because you'll take him to New Hampshire Speedway in a couple of years.
Yeah,
Super cool. Anyway, yeah, I didn't really 100% pay attention to it either. Like I said, the cool thing about it was that there is no out of bounds, so the cars were just trying all kinds of wild lines.
yeah.
And I think it was Kurt Busch early on who actually did pretty well with going to the bottom of the track and getting that run on 2 or 3 cars every time he'd pull that move off before everybody else started to make the same moves and make it less good for him in particular.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. When I was watching the California race, I was talking to you. There's a lot of moving around, which is cool.
Sure.
There wasn't just freight trains of cars, even though that was like it's like a mile and a half track, so it's not really a super speedway. But there was more than one line, which is what makes it really cool.
Yep, and it was the same in Phoenix too. If you'd been able to, I guess maybe pay a little bit more attention, but there was definitely a lot of other lines they could use, and there was a lot of moving around. And I don't know, I was entertained by it. It was a good race. It was interesting having Danica Patrick as a commentator.
Yeah, 2 weeks
I
in
don't
a
know that
row.
there's ever been a female in the booth before, at least not as a regular commentator, and she's pretty good.
Yeah.
It was cool to see another first time winner of Phoenix this weekend. Chase Briscoe won the event.
Yeah, they've had
The
a different winner every race so far, right?
Yeah, and the cool story about Chase Briscoe is that he grew up a giant Tony Stewart fan, and they were talking about that
Yeah, he
during the
runs for him.
broadcast. And now he runs for his team. Yeah,
Yeah.
I will say that when he got out of the race car at the
Oh,
end
the
and took
poor
his helmet
guy.
off, but
Poor,
man, if that's not like a real genuine NASCAR driver, I don't know what is. He certainly wasn't hired for his looks. We'll put it that way.
yeah, the poor
That's
guy's hair.
That's what you want to see when you see a NASCAR driver. Like Junior Johnson didn't get out of his race car and look like $1,000,000. He got out of his race car looking like a sweaty fat old man. So when Chase Briscoe got out and his comb over was blowing in the breeze and he had 38 inches of forehead, it was definitely it was a NASCAR driver.
Yeah.
I'm into it. It's fine.
Someone get that man a hat.
Yeah,
Sponsor hat.
they did pretty quickly, but it was still funny. And whatever, he won a NASCAR race. It doesn't he can have
Yeah, he didn't care.
male pattern baldness? He's still cool. But yeah, I enjoyed the race. I'm not sure what
He also
event is
did
this
a
weekend.
did a wicked burnout. Like it was probably the best one I've seen all season.
Yeah, he almost crashed the car doing the burnout is the problem. But it's all right. He was excited,
Good.
man. It's
End
his
of the
first
race.
NASCAR win. The
Yeah,
team
40.
cares because they don't want to have to fix it.
Yeah, it's
But
got
yeah, I'm
bolt-on
not sure
bodies.
what
Wheels.
race is next. Do you know what race comes up next?
I think they're done with West Coast stuff.
Yeah, that was the end of the West Coast swing, so I think it might be Atlanta is next, maybe. I think Atlanta is next, which is always a good race. So
Which is kind of crazy, right? Let's do Daytona and then push everything out to West Coast.
no, let's do L.A. and then go to Florida.
Oh yeah, it's so
and
weird.
then go back to California and then
Yeah.
do Phoenix and
We should have
whatever.
new season opener Sonoma. Do all the West Coast.
Oh, they can't get rid of Daytona. That's not in the cards.
No, then you go back. Doesn't have to be season opener.
Yeah, but they wanted to do the season opener or something crazy. That's what they did.
Yeah,
LA
make it Sonoma.
Coliseum. But they can't not do Daytona to open the race season. That would be sacrilegious.
Okay. Clutch
Listen,
your pearls.
I don't care. I could not care less. But the typical NASCAR base, I think, would be upset if Daytona was not the first race of the year, first points race of the year.
I guess.
So
I don't
if
think
they open the
anyone
NASCAR
cares.
season on a road course, whoo, that'd be great. But I don't think it's ever going to happen.
I mean, the Clash was last year, Daytona Road Course.
But the Clash is not a points event. The
Yeah.
first points event every year since the dawn of time is Daytona. So some traditions, I guess, just stick around.
All right, fine. Something crazy. Next year's Clash, Daytona
beach.
Beach.
Yeah, I'm into it. I tried dirt last year. I might as well do something good this year.
Let's go right to the beach.
Um,
Some paddle tires on these things.
I mean, I'm way into it. They didn't have paddle tires and they used to run on the beach and it still worked out. So
Yeah, I guess the beach
no
is kind
paddle
of hard.
tires. Yeah. I'm way into it. Let's do it. You and me need to control NASCAR. Not sure how we're going to pull that off, but. Oh, have you done any project car stuff, Andrew?
No, I got some stuff lined up. I've got parts. Probably do it this weekend, but I'll talk about that next time. I think you've done a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, some planned, some unplanned. It's been a week of car stuff for sure. So I guess we'll start with the unplanned stuff. I had a breakdown the other day.
Oh, you don't say.
You say that like I have them all the time, but honestly, when was the last time I actually broke down in a car on the road?
I
You can't
don't know.
remember, can you?
No,
So you
I
have
need
this whole image and thought of me and all my cars breaking down all the time, but they
I need
actually
that.
don't.
We need a sign this many days since a breakdown.
It has been years, Andrew. It has been I've lived here now for 3 years in a couple of months, right?
Yeah.
I have not broken down the side of the road here ever. So that's at least 3 years.
No, you
And
just
if you,
crashed on the side of the road.
well, that wasn't, yeah. Listen, way to sink the whole mood of the show, Andrew. Now I'm upset.
uh,
I'm gonna go
you're all
home.
right.
I'm still upset though. What was I going with it? Anyway, so the last time I broke down in a car, I was trying to think of that actually because I knew that the first thing you were going to say was something along the lines of, "Oh, you don't say," or "What else is new," or something along those lines. And I was 100% right, but I couldn't think of the last time I broke down in a car on the side of the road that required either fixing or towing home.
Yeah. What happened to the Volkswagen the other week?
I got it home
Yeah, it had to be
when the clutch
towed.
issue happened,
No, the coolant.
but it was from home, and
Oh,
that
it
car
was
doesn't
towed.
count.
Broke down in the driveways. That doesn't count. All right.
That car doesn't count anyway because it had just been serviced and something from service was a problem.
Okay.
So
Okay.
okay, so you're right. You know what? Hold on. Back up. It doesn't count because I said when was the last time I broke down on the side of the road?
I mean, your driveway is on the side of the road, right?
When was the last time I broke down on the side of the road and had to repair a car to get home or get a tow truck? I can't even remember. The last thing I can think of is on my Silverado back in like 2015 when I had to put an alternator in it on the side of the road in Georgia.
I mean, you guys patched the windshield in the uh,
Yeah, that's
clips.
different. I don't think that counts. Anyway, to get to the story, I drove the Colt the other day.
Yeah.
I drove the Colt on like the commute time home on the 10 interstate, which I generally don't do. And I think the car was just mad at me for doing it because I don't like to be on the interstate during commuting hours. One, because the car is a 1978 Dodge Colt. It's not a very big car. I'm afraid to be, hit in that car. But two, because there's just tons of rocks and debris all over the place on that road. And I don't want to be replacing a windshield in a 78 Colt because my assumption is that's not an easy thing to do. So I think the car was mad at me for taking on the interstate. I noticed it getting warm. It still was running fine. There was no steam coming out, but the gauge was getting pretty hot. Now, the gauge in this car is old. It's on the fritz a little bit sometimes, and sometimes you get a false read of hot. And you can kind of, just give a little tap on the dashboard and it'll go back to where it belongs. I've taken the cluster out and cleaned all the connections. I don't know what it is. It's something between the sensor and the gauge, but it generally works. Sometimes you get a little false hot reading. It goes to like a little over 3/4 and then comes back down again. But even when it's at 3/4, if you take like one of those infrared thermometers and you put it on the upper hose, the temperature is like, 185. So it's not like it's overheating. So what I noticed though is that the gauge is going beyond the normal hot. And I was like, oh, that seems like it's actually getting hot. But it's running okay. This is interesting. So I said, well, I'm going to take the next exit just in case and check everything out and make sure everything's all right. So I took the exit. I get to the end of the ramp. It's a red light. You can go right on red. Of course, the car in front of me chooses not to go right on red when I'm sitting there overheating. Eventually get out of the way. I pull into a parking lot of a Penske truck rental place. For anybody who's from the Phoenix area, this is the 45th and Van Buren exit of the 10. If you know anything about Phoenix, that's not the place that you want to be broken down on the side of the road. It's not the greatest of neighborhoods, but it is what it is. At least I had a nice big open parking lot. There was actually another couple in there who were repairing the belt on their F-150 pickup, so I wasn't alone in breaking down on that part of the 10 apparently that day. I got off the side of the road. I popped the hood open, and I noticed that my overflow tank was resting on top of the crossmember. I was like,
Oh, that's not where that goes.
that doesn't belong there. And the cap for the overflow tank was on the other side of the crossmember. However, both parts didn't fall out of the car. They're both still there, so that's good. Um, it was hot. It was steaming like crazy. So I did not open the cap. I do have one of those caps with the little red pressure tab on top, so you can relieve the pressure through the expansion hose. So I relieved all the pressure out of it. It got to a point where it wasn't steaming anymore, and I pulled the cap off, and I was like, "Huh, I don't see any coolant." So I happen to have a 32 ounce like tumbler of water that I drink during the day, and I happened to fill it right before I left work, and I hadn't drank any of it yet. So I was like, "Oh, I'll put that in the radiator and see what happens." So I put the full 32 ounces in the radiator, and I was like, "Huh, I still don't see any coolant.
Hmm.
That's interesting." So now I'm like, "All right, well, this is not obviously ideal." So I look around, and I could see like 3 blocks down the road, like the glow of the green from the diesel price on the sign of a gas station. I was like, looks like there's a gas station down there. I can probably walk to that. Again, not a place I want to walk because it's not the best neighborhood, but it's what it is. So I walked out of the gas station. I bought 2 gallons of coolant and a gallon of water, um, knowing that the car doesn't take that much coolant. But just in case I was trying to drive home and the car kept overheating, at least I'd have enough supply to get home.
Or you'd
I
have
think
something to drink and end it all.
add, and the water would be to drink though, maybe, but
Oh,
not the coolant. No, I would not be drinking the coolant.
oh, the
Uh,
forbidden Gatorade.
Listen, the first breakdown since 2015 is not a reason to drink Kool-Aid. It's forbidden ecto cooler. So anyway, I get back to the car. It's cooled off really good at this point anyway. I fill up with the first gallon of coolant. It takes about half the gallon, um, which is a significant amount of coolant, especially because this car takes about 3/4 of a gallon total, and I already put 32 ounces in it. So I think I had no coolant left. I get the coolant in the car. I get it fired up, watching it, watching the temp go up. Temp goes up. The thermostat opens. I see the temp come back down a little bit. Everything's working great. Doesn't sound like I've hurt the car. Everything sounds okay. So, all right, well, I'm going to try to drive the car home. So I drove the car home. Made it home. No tow truck. Which is, I guess, at the end of the day, a win, right?
Yeah.
So I made it home. No tow truck. Car is good. What happened after some diagnostic work in the driveway? The overflow tank has developed a hairline crack in the bottom of it where there's a seam. And I think that every time I shut the car off and it cools down, a little bit of coolant seeps at the bottom of it. And, I've been using the car all winter on a pretty regular basis. I've probably driven it 4,200 miles this year by my basic calculations. That's a lot of miles. And I think just every time I shut it off, enough coolant leaks out to the fact that eventually there was no coolant left. So
You didn't notice it was leaking anywhere?
I think it's a very thin hairline fracture, and I think it's only during a certain pressure when the car is maybe running or not running. I don't know, but it has not leaked anywhere. No, and there's no coolant in the oil. There's no milkshake at all. The oil level is always lower than it should be because it leaks oil. It's not like it's filling up with coolant in there. There's no
When
bearing
was
damage. So
when was the last time you drove it?
the last time I drove it was the day prior. I drove
Yeah.
it 60. I drove it 112 miles on Sunday, and I drove it 65 miles on Monday, and I was doing about 60 miles on Tuesday. So I drove it a ton this week, and I think it was just finally out of coolant. So I've been keeping an eye on the coolant. I drove it again the day after that.
Yeah.
After everything, I opened the radiator cap, and it was still full of coolant, no issues at all. Like I said, it's a very minor seep out the bottom of the overflow tank, and I can see it now that I'm looking for it. But it's so minor that you don't notice it, you don't smell it. It's a very little bit. So I think it's just over time enough leaked out. So I'm searching for a replacement overflow tank. So, or I'll just put an aftermarket one on there and make a bracket for it. But I'm trying to find the original style one. It was the same on Mitsubishi's from 1970 through like 1990. So
Yeah, I think it's the same one that is in first gen Monteros, and
it
I've
is the
seen
same one.
people get replacement new ones because they turn yellow and you can't see through them
Yep.
anymore.
Yep. And mine was pretty yellow. and it's just old, and over time it just. I mean, it's a 78, so what's that? 43 years ago.
Yeah. Somebody
So
recently I saw on Instagram had one that was
like 5
brand
years
new.
ago. Oh,
It
maybe I'll
was
look
like
at
an
the
OEM
part
one that was
number.
brand new.
I haven't even looked at the part number yet. I was just looking at
Yeah.
like car part for any car that it fits.
Yeah, it
So,
probably comes. The regular Mitsu dealer probably doesn't get it, but you can probably order it and it comes from
yeah,
overseas
I'm
as a
sure
new
a
Mitsu
Hyundai.
part.
I'm sure a 2004 Hyundai Galloper uses the same one,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
it's probably still available. But anyway, so that's at least it was minor. The car got home. I did change the oil that night because whenever you get a car really warm, obviously it's not a good idea for the car in general, but it also breaks the oil down pretty bad. So oil doesn't do well with temperatures beyond where it's designed to work. So it doesn't have the same protection that it had before that, and I didn't want to drive it again without changing the oil. So I try to keep a filter on hand for the cars that I own. So I had a filter on the shelf, and was able to change the oil in my driveway that night. So all is well. As I drove the car again the next day, did the full same 64-mile trip, took it on the interstate, no problems at all. Was totally happy at temperature. So good things. Next project. Moving on to the second one.
Oh, real quick, is the bottle the one that slides over like the bracket?
It's got a bracket that has like almost like a reverse. It like the two bars come off the fender well, and they curve outward,
Yeah, it like slides over it like it's
and it
a.
slides over it. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's almost like the same one that's on the Gallant too.
It could be the same as the Galant. It is different from the Eclipse. I looked.
Yes,
So
that Eclipse one is different. It's on the radiator.
yep.
It's a tall, thin one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
totally
different than the
different.
Eclipse. It is the same one in the Starion though. I think I didn't even look, but I think it's the same one in the Starion. But I'm not robbing it out of that car yet, so I'll be able to get one. And again, it's not even like an emergency; it needs one. It just I should replace it so I don't have the same
I
problem
just sent you
again in
one
the
that
future.
I think that's what it looks like,
Okay,
and it's only like $16.
so I should probably buy it. Is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lusso Overland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the bottle.
Yep. So that's the same one they've been using for a million years.
Yeah,
Just like the oil caps.
yeah. It has a different the cut in the front of that isn't there on mine. Mine's like perfectly square, but it's the same. It's probably interchanges with the same part number. They probably.
Probably.
Yeah, 83 to 2000 Montero.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same. It looks like it's aftermarket actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually,
aftermarket for
I should
thick
grab one
OEM.
because mine is yellow in mine.
Cool. I'll order one after the podcast.
Yep. There you go. All right. Sorry. What were you saying before I interrupt you with that?
Oh, I don't know. Moving on to the next car.
Oh
Done
yeah,
done a lot of car stuff this week. It's been a very productive week actually.
the Cressida.
The Cressida. So had I even started working on it last podcast? I don't think I
No.
did. I think this is all new this week. Heavy updates. The 1981 Toyota Cressida MX-62. We chatted about the car before when I bought it. I think I picked it up in November.
Oh no, we did talk about it because you said you started it without checking anything, or you didn't. You turned it over without double checking anything. It wasn't bound up.
Yeah, that happened already?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you powered it up. Everything lit up.
Yeah,
Radio
I
worked.
had done that. I had moved it out front and done that. I don't think I had started working on the back of it yet, though, had I?
No, you hadn't. You hadn't talked about draining all the fuel out, I don't think.
See, now I'm having a hard time remembering what I did. No, because I think I did all that on the weekend, so this is all...
You powered it up. You cleaned it. Disinfected it. I don't think you talked about steam cleaning it.
No. All right, so I'm thinking back to what I did this weekend, so I can tell the story of only what happened this weekend forward. But
Mm-hmm.
so I talked about the car a little bit. I had moved it out front. We'd pushed it around. I got it up on jack stands. First things first, I wanted to drop the tank out of the car.
Yep.
Because I don't want to start the car and run the car with old fuel in it.
Oh boy, how did it have old fuel?
It did. It was almost PTSD back to the 74 Colt last summer. Same kind of age of the fuel. The car's last sticker was 2003.
How much was
So
gas in 2003? So you kind of made money there.
yeah, if it was still gas, for sure. I think it was you that told me I should put it on Facebook Marketplace for $2 a gallon, right?
Yeah.
See if somebody else can buy it.
Yeah. Stale gas is a construct.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it's not. It's definitely turpentine and it smells absolutely horrible. I will say, though, that remember the problem we had in getting rid of the fuel last time? How much of a pain it was?
Yeah.
Here in Phoenix, all you do is call the city and you say, hey, I have a bunch of hazardous waste to get rid of. And they
Right.
say, okay, put it in a safe container and leave it in your driveway. We'll come get it.
Weird.
Yeah. So much nicer. So I haven't done it yet, but I did look that up. I haven't done it just because I want to make sure I'm done with fluids before I call it, because you're only allowed to do that so many times a year. It might even be once, but nonetheless, they come pick it up, so that's nice. Um, yeah, boy was the fuel bad. I decided to get a siphon pump to pump it out. There is a drain plug in the bottom of the tank, but I knew that would be messy and awful. And plus, it was so caked in stuff that I didn't know if I was going to be able to get it off. So I bought a siphon pump. It took a while, but it actually worked pretty well. It's like a squeeze ball siphon pump. Like it has a rubber one-way valve on it. So as you squeeze the ball, it sucks the gas out of the tank and up into whatever you're storing it in. So I was able to go in through the trunk. There's an access panel for the level unit, the sending unit. So I was able to pull out the sending unit and had access to the tank. So I pulled the sending unit out, and of course the tank is 100% full of fuel. Like, it was to
If
the
you're gonna
top,
park a car, don't use all the gas in it. Just
to the top, 100% to the top. So I was like, oh, good. And all I had was like a 2.5 gallon fuel container to put it in. I was like, well, that's clearly not going to work. So in the end of the day, we have 2 5-gallon bucketfuls now and a 2.5 gallon gas can full of old fuel.
whoa.
Yeah, so we have a lot of probably not flammable anymore liquid in containers. So, but again, Phoenix will come pick it up, so it's nice. So that took a few hours to get all straightened out. It took a trip to Home Depot to get cans to put everything in, and it was a whole thing. But yeah, so surprisingly, the car was full. I had opened the trunk and shaken the car back and forth a little bit to kind of see what was going on and see if I could hear how much fuel was in there. And it didn't sound like much, but it
Because it
turns
was
out
full.
it didn't sound like much because it was full, so there wasn't much room to slosh around. It wasn't that there wasn't much sloshing around; there wasn't much free space to slosh around. So that was a bit of a shocker.
Plus, it was like
Um,
gel. So
yeah, it's pretty brown. It's almost like 100% opaque. Is opaque means you can't see through it, right?
yeah.
Almost 100% opaque. So it's not good. Actually, you know what it looked like? It looked like a nice, refreshing bucket of iced tea.
Uh,
That's what it actually looked like.
yeah.
It wouldn't be that, obviously. It would be gross. I should have used it to wash down the coolant though, but I didn't. So, um, anyway, so I got all the fuel out of the car, and then it was all right. Let's get this tank out of the car. So I was looking to see where it was connected and what needed to come apart to disconnect the tank. It wasn't too bad. It had a couple of bolts that hold the vapor line that goes up next to the filler neck. That was held to the body. I'd unbolt that. There were a couple of bolts holding on to splash shields. Took the splash shields down. And then there were 2 tank straps, very similar to the style that was in the
Oh,
Saab
tank
that we just
straps.
did. Yeah. So dropped the tank straps, got the fuel filler neck disconnected. And then I wound up actually just cutting the fuel lines because I'm going to replace them anyway. Just the ones that are on top of the tank.
Yeah, I see the picture of them. They're all up close. I was like, oh, those are all dry rotted. So yeah.
Oh, yeah,
cut
they're
them.
terrible. Yep, just cut them anyway. So actually, honestly, they weren't that dry rotted. Everything was pretty pliable. I was pretty surprised.
The ends of them where the clamps were that in that picture. They were all
That was dry
cracked.
rotted. Yep. But the hose itself, the important part of the hose, was not dry rotted. So, and I was looking at stuff. I was looking at the brake hoses and all that stuff under the car. not dry rotted. The filler neck is all rubber; it's not metal, and that's not dry rotted. So that kind of stuff is all in good shape. So
Yeah, but fuel injection hose is cheap. So
it's gonna cost me $12 in hose to replace all of it. So I'm just gonna replace it all. Let's do it once and do it right. Right.
yeah,
That comes up later on in the story too. This is all new Brad, obviously. Old Brad would be like, let's save everything and make it work.
yeah,
New Brad doesn't want to do the job twice. He learned from the Raider. Do it right, do it once, move on to the next thing. So, get the tank out of the car. It was a disaster. It was still full of crud in the bottom. Um, can't do much with it. It's just kind of gross. So I got some. Also, everything at the bottom of the car is covered in mud, like
right.
super heavy, thick mud, because the car sat on a muddy driveway for since 2003 until 2022 or
Also, you said the
2021.
road in there was like a dirt road.
It was a dirt road for a solid 12 miles probably to get to the property where it was at. So it was just driven up and down a dirt road for a long time. Not its whole life, which we'll also get to later, but at least a long time. At least from 2000 to 2003. Or at least, anyway, we'll get there in a minute. So it's a dirt road. It drove on a lot, and it was parked on mud. And I know that the water level in the yard at one point got up to the rocker panels. So that
Hmm.
means that the entire bottom of the car was soaked in mud at one point in its life. So
Hmm.
everything is literally encased in mud, and there were mud wasp nests everywhere, all dormant. Thankfully, there were no more bees in them, but there were all tons of mud underneath the car, which I've never really seen up close. I
Oh,
guess
they're
they're really
gross.
just tightly packed mud. Yeah, it's weird. There's a bunch of little holes in it.
Yeah.
So we got the tank out. We got some basically like purple power.
Yep.
Sprayed the whole thing down, scrubbed the whole thing down. Everything looks brand new. Like all the aluminum fittings and stuff, all look brand new. They still have like the coloring of the anodized, metal on them. Like not New England car, obviously, because it's super nice. Uh, Mud is a preservative, I guess, at that point, because underneath the mud, everything was real clean. Even the pads that go in between the tank and the body of the car were still like soft and pliable and not breaking and terrible. So that's good. So the tank out, we finished getting it drained out the best we could. Um, was looking up all the different ways for like home remedies to clean the tank out.
Mm-hmm. Like
There are a couple,
chains, vinegar, right?
yeah, vinegar and water. Another one was butyric
Just
acid.
yeah.
Another
Put
one,
acetone in there.
yeah, acetone was one. Another one was basically like the Zep degreaser, like you buy
Mm-hmm.
the gallon bottles of it. So I chose to not use butyric acid in my driveway because two reasons. One, I don't want to dump butyric acid all over my yard.
Yeah. Kill your
We have
grass.
dogs, and we have dogs. It's just
Yeah.
not. It's not good.
It'll etch your
Um,
concrete.
yeah, it's not something I wanted to play with in the yard. So I used the most, I guess, environmentally friendly, give or take, cleaner that I could because I knew I'd be basically dumping this stuff out. Um, Unfortunately, though, put it in the tank, agitated it as much as possible. A lot of things said to fill the tank with like rocks. So I bought some rocks and then,
Oh, I would have done chains. How do you get all the rocks out?
oh, so that was my thought. Originally, it was like, not a big deal. Just dump it upside down in those giant holes.
No.
But everybody was like, fill it with rocks. So I got home and I thought better of that. Um,
Yeah.
because there's all kinds of baffles and stuff in there. And I was like, no, this thing will forever have rocks in it. So I'm not doing this. I didn't think of chains on top of my head. So I was trying to think of the way to do it, and I couldn't think of a way to do it. So I let the stuff sit in it for like 48 hours and went and looked in with a flashlight, and I hadn't touched anything. It was still the exact same amount of gunk in the bottom of the tank. And if I took out like a screwdriver, like a flathead screwdriver, and scraped through it, it was like millimeters thick of gunk. And I was like, man, the second I put this back in the car and fill it with gas, the gas while driving on the bumps and all that, it's going to
Yeah.
reactivate all of this stuff, and the gas
Yeah.
tank is just going to be full of trash.
Yeah. Because gas is a great detergent too.
Yep. So which would have been way more expensive though to fill it with gas because it's $4.59 a
Well, that's why
gallon right now.
acetone is kind of similar in gas that way.
Yeah. Anyway, I also didn't want a giant thing full of acetone in my driveway. I was hoping to not build a bomb this weekend.
Yeah.
So Anyway, we contacted a local radiator shop and asked if
Okay.
they do fuel tanks, and they do. So
Huh.
for $150, they'll take and they'll soak it in their whatever the solution is. I don't know if it's acid. I don't know what it is.
Probably some
Uh,
horrible chemical,
yep. But he looked at
industrial
it.
chemical.
He looked at it. Again, I always give her big ups when she helps me out, but she helps me all the time. So big ups to Naomi because she was able to bring it down on the lunch break of her work from home day this week, which is huge help. So she brought it down there, and the guy looked at it and he said, "Well, this is pretty bad." He goes, "I want to put it in the tank for 4 days."
Whoa.
So it's at the bottom of a tank,
Oh boy.
submerged
Hey
right now.
Carl, this is the worst
Yeah,
we've seen.
yeah,
Look at this
exactly.
thing.
Where'd you find this? The Titanic? So anyway, it's at the bottom of some tank now at Hal's Radiator Shop. Hopefully it comes like it's $150. It'll sit down there for 4 days, and then I guess they boil it afterwards. And boiling it takes care of anything else in there that would have been um, would
Nice,
become sediment.
nice boiled dinner fuel tank.
Yeah. Well, he said, "I hope you're not going to be upset if the black finish is gone when you get it back." So I'm not worried about that either. So if the black finish is gone,
You
we'll just
can.
spray paint the gas tank. It's gonna be
Eastwood
fine.
makes that paint. You can.
Yeah, tank paint. Yeah. I might just do it anyway to make the car look professionally
Yeah.
clean in the bottom. So anyway, so yeah, so here's the tank right now. It means we dropped it off on Wednesday. I won't get it back till Monday. Um, the hope was to get the car back together this weekend and see what's next, but it's not going to happen. So I did order in advance. I ordered a fuel pump, a fuel filter, some tune-up parts, fuel line. The plan is to replace all the line from the fuel pump. Sorry, excuse me. All of the fuel line from the fuel filter to the fuel tank, and anything on top of the tank will all be new lines. I'm not going to replace the lines in the front of the car from the filter to the rail, but I'm going to clean those out before I plug it all back together.
Is it
So
a
I'm going to
decent
take,
pump?
yeah, I bought the Delphi pump.
All right.
Yep, 100%. After I learned that lesson with the Starion. Buy the good pump, right?
Yeah.
So there was a couple different options, a couple brands I hadn't heard of.
Bosch or Denso or.
There was no Denso option for the car. Um, the option for the car that was the best name brand was Delphi.
Yeah, Delphi
So
makes pumps.
yep. So I figured Delphi would be a good enough brand, right?
Yep.
That passed the Andrew brand test. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was $65, I think. I spent like $150 on Rock Auto, and I literally got almost every tune-up part that I need except for injectors. I don't know that I need injectors yet, so it was a pretty cheap purchase. Um, so anyway, I got all that stuff, so I can get all that replaced this weekend. So when I get the tank back on Monday, it should only be a couple hour job to get the tank back in the car.
Yeah.
The exciting news is that when all that was done, we went to the front of the car, and I said, "Well, nothing else we can do mechanically right now until we know. So let's put a little fuel into the intake and see if the car will start." Car
Oh
started.
yeah. Nice.
Yep. It required zero effort.
Cool.
Literally put a little fuel in there, cranked it over. On like the second crank, the car was running.
Hmm.
And it ran till it ran out of fuel in the intake.
Nice.
So proof of concept, the car runs. Just got to get fuel from the tank to the engine. That doesn't mean that we're out of the woods, obviously. We haven't got it up to temperature. Could still need a head gasket, worst case scenario, I think. We don't know the condition of the injectors. They could still all be gummed up. I'm going to
I
clean those this weekend.
like the red line stuff. Your first tank. There's some red line fuel system cleaner in it.
Yeah, I'm going to clean everything before I even put it together. So my plan this week is I'm pulling the injectors out.
You're gonna do
And
that bench thing.
I'm going to do the 9-volt battery bench clean with
Yeah, they could use acetone, right?
I usually use the B12 carbon fuel injector cleaner,
Oh, yeah.
the Chem Tool stuff, because it's specifically what it's designed for. So you might as well use it. It works really well. It's not a hard thing to do. So I'm going to pull all the injectors out and do that. And like I said, I'm going to blow the compressed air through the lines to clean them out. And if I need to put some solvent in there, I'll put some solvent in too. But I just want to make sure that fuel isn't going to be an issue. Make sure the car starts and runs. So that I can get temperature, make sure the fuel pump is pumping, make sure the water pump is pumping, make sure the head gasket is sealing, make sure that the transmission is shifting. I mean, the worst case scenario now, the two things it could need would be a transmission or a head gasket, because proof of concept, everything else works,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you don't know why it was parked. Man, that would be wild. It was just parked to be parked.
So, moving on with the story, we did a deeper cleaning inside the car this weekend. And during that deeper cleaning, we uncovered a registration, and the registration was from the state of Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
So, Alabama in 2000 actually, the year 2000, the car was registered in Alabama. So, the expired New Mexico plate is from '03. So, my assumption is that the car was driven from Alabama to New Mexico and then parked and then left there when this person moved out of New Mexico, because I did some digging based on her name, because there's a name on the registration,
Mm-hmm.
and I get the name of Mary Tate Hammond. She's unfortunately deceased, but she was born in 1931 in Alabama. She passed away in 2018 in Amarillo, Texas. And in looking her up in between, she was a school teacher in Alabama, who a music teacher who moved to New Mexico to teach music in New Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
with an address in Ramah, which is the town I got the car in. And the guy I bought
Wild.
the car from said that the car was on the property when he bought the property. He
Weird.
bought he bought the property, and there were 3 cars on the property. There was a Astrovan, a first gen Montero, and this Cressida. Unfortunately, he had sold the Montero and I missed out on it. But he said that the Montero ran and drove when he got the property, and he literally drove it to Mexico City and then back to Phoenix from Ramah, New Mexico, which is 6 hours from Phoenix.
Hmm.
So which means he did 12 hours in that car, and he had a windshield put in Phoenix. And then the guy who put the windshield in said, "Hey, I want to buy this." And he said, "Well, I have to go to Mexico City first. I'll sell it to you on the way back." And that's what he did. So the first
Weird.
Tim Montero is somewhere here in Phoenix. But anyway, so I found the registration for Mary Tate Hammond, and all the addresses line up and all the dates line up. So it looks like that she drove the car from Alabama to New Mexico to do a teaching job there. And then she and her husband retired, it looks like around 0304, based on what I'm finding on the internet, because the internet is a scary place, and moved to Texas with their families. So maybe they decided they didn't need to bring all their stuff with them to Texas and just left the car there,
Yeah, maybe.
because the car seems frozen in time. It's very strange. So anyway, it's kind of interesting that she's buried in Amarillo, because we drive through there all the time on the way to Naomi's sister's house. It's kind of on the way in the Texas Oklahoma side of things. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool to get this car running and driving, and then like maybe find her gravesite and take a picture of the car with her gravesite as like a tribute to her, put a flower on her grave and like tie the whole story together with the car, right?
Yeah.
Just a weird little story. I thought it would be interesting. You might not think it's weird. You might think it's weird, but I thought it'd be kind of cool. So anyway, it was a neat story. There's a little more
Brad,
history
the
about the
goth
car.
kid.
Yeah. Oh, listen, we're telling the story of the car. We're building the car's future. It's kind of a whole thing. So it's not like it's out of our way. We go there all the time, like 3 or 4 times a year. So anyway,
I want to talk
I
about
thought it
that
was neat.
fuel tank. That feels like a real out there industry, to have a place that'll clean fuel tanks.
We have a bunch of radiator shops out here too, which are not
Yeah.
out there. I mean, there's still
Yeah.
radiator shops there, but I
I don't
remember
think they're very good
they did the one in the
here.
Colt, the one in
Yeah.
Wakefield, or Wenham or somewhere.
Was it
it Wakefield?
Rogers? I don't know. I don't think they
Yeah,
did a good
Rogers
job to
Radiator.
the one to the Gallant, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's flowing right.
I will tell you, they did a decent job with the one on the Colt, but the one thing I did not like, and I specifically asked them not to do it, and they did it anyway, was to paint it when they were done.
Yeah, they painted the Gallant one. I don't know if that's having to do with the.
Yeah, because it's like they used like Plastidip. It's so thick.
Yeah, it's
Pretty terrible.
yeah. I would have used the Eastwood radiator paint instead,
Yep.
which is
Yeah, they
made for
definitely
it.
used like Krylon,
Yeah, it's
but
weird. I don't
or
know.
house
It's
paint. Who
not.
knows?
I think it's not flowing that well either because it's just not. It's not eliminating enough heat as it should.
Yeah, I
I've
don't
talked
know.
about this before. I actually that was one of my things. I did order a radiator for it from Australia.
An aluminum one.
Yeah, because it's the only
Nice.
place I could get one, and it's a
Yeah.
apparently. I tried to order this one that was it was a Chinese one. It was in this company in like LA, and I ordered it. They're like, "Oh, we don't make it anymore, and it's out of stock." I'm like, "Ugh, okay."
Thanks, guys.
Uh, and it was like fairly cheap. And then I looked up, and it's apparently there's like some posts from like 10 to 15 years ago of people having these on the Gallant forums, and then they were kind of hard to get. They're still kind of hard to get because I had to order from Australia. It was a little expensive, but the US dollar is stronger than the Australian dollar right now, so that kind of worked out. But
Oh, excellent.
it's a power fit rate, so it's like, and they're all handmade apparently to order. So
Okay. So
they
it's
take
4 to
whatever.
5 weeks lead time or whatever.
It's like 10 weeks.
Okay. Oh, whatever.
Um,
It's be ready for a warm season there.
yeah, because the only other option would be a Koyo radiator for an Evo 1 to 3, which apparently are no longer made either.
Okay.
Cool. Sweet. It's kind of annoying. Some of the older stuff here is not. And even come to find out, the Koyo radiator I have for the Gallant or for the Talon, no longer made.
Interesting.
Like, at least I grabbed that at the right time.
Well,
Although
the
I
good
do
thing
have a
is
spare because of the 2 holes in it. I just need to have somebody weld it. It's
the,
brand
the
new.
good the good thing is that parts like radiators, you can technically use a universal one and just have things built to size and make brackets to
Technically, yeah.
work. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's not like it'll end the car's life forever, but at least you got one coming.
Yeah, it's like thicker and it'll fit. And hopefully it helps with the cooling because that's really the problem. It was like,
Probably too cold.
yeah, but even putting a cooler thermostat, and I have those air guides I made to substitute the factory ones that were missing. You know, I've got that data log of doing 70 miles an hour on the highway at night. The ambient temp is 70 degrees, and the thing's running 210. That's like
Yeah.
way too hot. It should have been like 180, 190
It's funny.
to basically be thermostat.
I don't think ambient temp has a huge effect on a car when it's moving.
It shouldn't when it's moving, but it is a data point. But
Yeah.
if I was sitting in traffic, then definitely.
Oh, sitting in traffic, it makes a big difference because you're sitting there on the hot pavement and the pavement's radiating the sun, and it
But
gets
that's why I was
totally
like, I'm going to drive the thing at night and test the heat because at least it'll.
yeah.
It was
I
like
had
9 o'clock at night, so like it should have cooled off by then, and like
Yeah,
the
I
car
had that
should run nice and
conversation.
cool.
I have that conversation often at work, and people are talking about, well, does it overheat in the summertime? It's like, well, the car's thermostat's 190 degrees.
Yeah,
So theoretically, if the car's moving, it shouldn't be affected by a 120-degree day because the car's already hotter than 120 degrees. Like, it's
well, it's being able to shed that heat to.
again, that's what I mean. When you're sitting still, it's one thing, but when the car is moving, it definitely
Yeah,
should
you
be
get
an
wind
effect.
chill,
Yeah,
but
not even wind chill. It's just that the temperature is the temperature at that point. You're not going to have that boiling off the asphalt quite as warm as you are sitting there sitting still. I don't know.
that's
I
wind
think
chill.
it's.
That's
I guess you're
what I
right.
mean.
I guess you're right.
You're
Technically, it's
moving
wind chill.
through the air, so it feels
Yeah.
cooler. There's more air moving across it to because heat wants to go to cold. So
Yeah. Anyway, my point is, when it's 120 degrees here, your car should not overheat any more than it should when it's 30 degrees in Massachusetts.
yeah,
If the
because
car's running properly, because
yeah,
the car runs at 190 to 200 degrees, so
right.
that swing in temperature shouldn't be a huge difference for the car. Anyway,
Well, that's where I want it, and the car's not running at that. It's running over that,
right,
and
which
then
too
it
hot.
makes it idle higher, and it makes it
Well, again,
run
I
hotter,
remember
and then
it's less efficient too.
yeah,
I remember driving the car in 2017 up Mount Washington, 2016,
yeah.
2017, and it was overheating driving up Mount Washington. So I
Well,
mean,
that
it
was
is extreme
also
load going uphill elevation in traffic, but still, it wasn't a situation
well,
where the car should have been overheating.
it turned out the fan was bad too.
Oh, okay, I don't remember that.
Yeah. So, but now the fan is just running because the fan switch is like
It's too hot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's I forget what the temp is on it
Which maybe
off
is
the top of my
why
head.
the fan burnt out in the first place because it was just overrunning all the time.
I think it was just an old fan. It seemed kind of rusty, but it
Yeah.
was yeah, it should be. That's the other thing. Once you start moving, if the fan is going, you're actually restricting airflow. So you
Yep.
want it to once you get that airflow and the temp can come down, the fan should shut off, and then you'll get
Right.
more flow through. It's basically just not enough flow getting through the air the through the radiator to
Yep.
shed heat. Um, because everything else should be fine, and the water pump's fairly new, so just not a good exchange of heat. So hopefully the aluminum radiator should do it.
All right. Well, going back to my story, Andrew, you ready?
Yep.
Um, the last thing we did with the car was deep cleaning in the interior. We're not done because it's taking a long time, but we're done with the driver's side. Um, by deep clean, I mean we took the seats out, we pulled the center console out because we weren't going to pull the center console out, but as we were cleaning along the edge of it, mouse droppings were coming out from underneath it. So we were like, that's not cool. We got to get rid of those. So I took apart the whole center console, and a mouse had been living up in front of the shifter. So obviously, a mouse came up from the bottom and came in like the hole in the floor where the shifter goes through, and was living
Mm-hmm.
under the console, under the radio. So that was just covered in signs of mouse. But we tried a new thing with the car, which I've never done with the car before. I've never played with steam cleaning. It's quite impressive.
Really?
I thought for sure I was going to have to either buy a whole new carpet set or buy like the aerosol dye to change the color back because the carpet was so stained and so gross and what looked like rusty stains everywhere. I think what it really was mouse life and droppings and everything. So we used the car's cloth seats and obviously carpet. And we did like a two-part cleaning system. So as you know, and listeners probably know by now, we have 3 dogs. So obviously we have a vacuum which is specific for dog hair. It's made by Bissell and it's called the Pro Heat Pet Spot Clean. So what it is it's a you put the cleaning solution in it, and it's not a steam cleaner, but it uses like super hot, superheated water with the cleaning solution, and then you scrub it in and vacuum it up, and you can see like the brown grossness come out of the whatever you're cleaning. In this case, carpet and seats. But on top of that, we also have this um, little another Bissell product called the Steam Shot, and it literally takes superheated water, so steam, and it puts it out high pressure on a nozzle with these like bristles in the end of it, and then you can scrub it into something, and the steam actually releases the dirt and the stain, and then the other one with the carpet cleaning product lifts it out, and you can watch the brown grossness like be vacuumed up out of the seats and the carpet. And there was on the side of the driver's seat a stain that was so like dark and terrible that I thought for sure it was never going away. And we used the steam cleaner and did it 3 times, and it's like a brand new seat now. So the interior of this car, other than a couple of cracks in the dashboard because Southwest car sitting in the sun, uh, is like brand new. It's it's pretty impressive actually. The only thing it's gonna need is a headliner because the entire headline is gone. So like this steam cleaning is it's like a miracle. I've never used it in a car before. I don't even know that I ever knew there was home steam cleaning equipment available that wasn't like a giant industrial machine that you rent from Home Depot. Um,
Hmm.
but Naomi's daughter Courtney got it for her for Christmas, the steam cleaner, and she loves it. We use it in all the grout in the house. We thought we had gray grout because it's been the same color since we bought the house. We use a steam cleaner on it. Guess what? We have white grout. So it's just like we didn't know it was dirty. We don't live in a dirty house. We clean the floors all the time, but the steam cleaner like did what the normal floor cleaning products don't even do, and it took this gray grout. The grout's been on the floor probably. It looks like original tile from 1978. So we just made it all white again. And we're like, let's try this in the car. I don't even know why it came up as a subject or a thought, but we tried it in the car, and it is this 1981 Toyota is going to look brand new when we're done with it on the inside, anyway. So,
Sounds like I should have used that on the garbage Montero.
yeah, it might have worked had we known at the time. Yeah, I'm going to use it on everything. I mean, the gray
Does it
cloth
work on my
seats.
beard?
Yeah, I don't think high pressure steam on my face is a good idea, but I think anything other than that,
You don't know
it's
until
gonna
you
look pretty.
try. You don't know until you try.
Yeah, well, I'll let you try first. Next time you're out here in Phoenix, we'll let you steam clean your face and see what happens. But I'm not going to be the guinea pig on that one. I'll tell you that
Hey,
much.
they do a hot towel shave when you're at the barber, right?
Yep,
So
yep. Here's your high pressure hot water shave here. No, I don't think so. But anyway, so it's all good news with the car. I'm super excited. I actually test fit one of those wheels. The Anki, what are they called again? Spit
92s?
Modena. No, the Spit
Oh.
Modenas.
Spit Modena.
Spit Modena. So I tried one of those out on the car, and it's going to look cool if I use those.
My drunk buy purchase.
Yes, which I appreciate because they're cool and they fit my stuff perfectly. They're actually a little too small for the Cressida. They require maybe a small spacer in the rear, but I'm not going to worry about it.
I don't know what do you think the offset is on those? 0?
No, it's higher than 0. I think it's
Plus
probably
15?
like plus 15 or so, somewhere in that range. And it's only a 6.5-inch wide wheel.
Yeah.
So
little narrow guys.
Yep. Which, I mean, the car only has a 6-inch wide wheel factory, so
Mhm.
it's wider than the factory wheel, so it's not a big deal. But I just want to like tuck it out a little bit. I mean, my blue 79 Cressida has 8-inch wide wheels on it. So anyway, so yeah, I'm excited with how the car is coming along. Knock wood, it hasn't given me too much trouble. It's for a $600 car in the year 2022. It's pretty neat. So
Cool.
And stay tuned. There may have been another car that's been in the works.
A what?
Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll talk about it next week, maybe.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Sorry. Listen, sometimes deals come up and you can't pass them down.
Oh, sure.
It already runs and drives. It's fine. It's not a project. If it winds up happening, it's only because I'm selling the Volkswagen. And between this car that already runs and drives and hopefully the Cressida, I'll have the 2-car solution for a daily. 2 vintage cars plus the Eclipse. So 3 vintage cars equal 1 modern car when it comes to trying to get to work, right?
All right.
So, and it has functional AC too. So summertime's coming here. I need this vintage car with AC.
Okay.
We'll talk about it later.
All right. Does this 81 have AC?
It has AC, does not function. I actually gave the little tss to the fitting just to see, and it is quite empty. So there was no tss. Actually, it made no noise, but silence doesn't work so well. But it will have AC. Yes, I will fix the AC. I'm trying not to get ahead of myself with the car. I don't want to go through all this work and then have it need a transmission, which isn't the end of the world. I think it's actually a Borg Warner in this car, so it's actually easy to find. I think it was used across a lot of cars, but I haven't done enough research in that yet. So hopefully it doesn't need one. Hopefully it doesn't need anything. Hopefully my theory about them moving away and just leaving their stuff behind is true.
I hope so too.
Yeah. It would be amazing. The best $600 car ever, if that was the case.
Yeah. We'll have to change it to $600 is the new motto.
Well, this car and the other one that I'm talking about would average to 800. So,
No, boy.
So it's fine.
All right. Anything else?
No, I think that's it, Andrew. It was quite a full episode of Cressida Talk.
Let's wrap it up.
All right.
Getting the wrap up signal here. All right, cool. So, as always, you follow us on Facebook, Odd Off Topic Podcast, Odd Off Topic on Instagram. You follow me on Instagram, Race and Anger. I'm on Twitter, Race and Anger. We're also on Twitter, Odd Off Topic. And Brad, where can they find you?
As always, they can find me at TSISS350 on Instagram And make sure to follow our Scale Autocast, which is our Instagram page for our yet to be recorded podcast. But we're building some excitement there with some scale car stuff, and we'll have that for you soon.
All right, cool. So, as always, keep cars analog and aim for roses.